So I'm on a different mic and I'm also downstairs at the same time. So my audio may sound a little different, but it's fine, it's fine, it's cool. But I just want to promise today, it was really, really fun. People who I didn't think would be in school were in school, you know what I mean? But that's not the main thing I want to talk about, because it isn't Shira's Life channel, it's Disco Debate channel, you know what I mean? But I think I might go on to more rant videos, more than debate videos somewhat, because even though, like, at the same time, like, also, why is he a whole monster if he can't, like, eat people? But what's it called? Even though I do like debating and I enjoy debating, at the same time, it's like, uh you sort of run out of people to debate, and also at the same time you can't really get monetized off of debating content. So again, once I get to 1,000 subscribers and I'm now a big boy monetized guy, right, and I wait for this community guidelines violation just like comes off, then I'll just start focusing more on rant videos. I'll make them with people who I meet on Discord, if you get what I mean. But there are a whole bunch of things I want to go over. So for one, apparently there's been very, very weird allegations about a certain person within the Skype community who has very, very high status. And no, this time, surprisingly, I'm not talking about Archimedes. Um, this person is somebody who I've had conversations with in the past, and I hope that they aren't actually as weird as people are saying that. Look, there's a whole like 20-man call. There was only a 20-man call yesterday, literally discussing about how much of a loser this guy is. It's like, okay, well, even though he may be able to argue and like shout at everyone else until they inevitably concede, it's like, cool, that doesn't manipulate these people. But look, I'm not gonna name any names. Just expect there to be a 1 hour video on my channel soon about a certain person. That's one. And then two, I saw a lot of people get angry about me about the Zizo thing where I was shouting at Zizo. And the issue is like, one, there's no productive conversation I can get from speaking to Zizo, right? So of course, even though I agree, Zizo's like what's it called? He's a debater, so I should probably like take him seriously and not continuously cut him off like I complain about every single time. But like the issue is, um, he's hyping up Aeroflame, right? And he thinks Aeroflame is really good. So I know, like, what's it called? Surprisingly, the start of the call doesn't really represent my entire conversation with the guy, right? So again, or the start of the recording, I should say, doesn't really represent my entire conversation with the guy, because I already knew that he had Aeroflame super high. So my entire tactic going into that debate is to one, see if I can use the same tactics that I think Aeroflame uses, right? To see if I can like make him think he lost. And it's like, okay, well, when I do the aeroflame to you, when I pull a like flat earther, because like I don't understand why debaters do this. For example, I've seen like Ojas like Dead Boy complain or brag about being ignorant in debaters. Like, dude, you being hard headed and continually trying to refute a point, even though you're getting argumentatively getting your head beaten, doesn't really mean anything, right? And it's like there are certain people on Discord who are like that. For example, I've seen people admit that they'll be hard headed if it benefits them or if they like what's it called, if it's something that they care about. And it's like, dude, like even if you care about it, you should be open to hearing other people's opinions and not actually like I'm trying to stonewall them the entire conversation. I watched one Seth video like as I was thinking of what I was going to talk about today. And to be clear, the thinking process takes a whole 2 seconds, right? But as I was thinking, Seth to start talking about okay, how to judge a debate. So me being the next coming of Seth the programmer, I'm going to be explaining to all of you okay, let me not call you guys players, but all of the people who are watching the channel, how to properly judge a debate. But before that, I do that, I'll make sure to make a mental note to do that later. But the issue is, right, some people get on this app every day, right? And then they decide that there's this specific person that they're beefing with. And this doesn't actually exclude me. And they decide that there's this specific person that they're beefing with that they will not actually engage in any sort of meaningful conversation with them because they think that the person did something wrong to them. It's like, dude, is that really that serious? Like people sleep, wake up, and remember that they're still beefing with somebody. It's like, dude, and this is me included. I don't know how I've done this for so long, but it's like if we should try and like change that as we continue to develop as black people, because specifically apparently there's this really weird problem of the disco debate community dying, right? And it's like, look, the disco debate community is not dying, right? Why am I saying this like I'm the president? But look, the debate community isn't dying, right? Specifically, the issue is nobody wants to engage in Skype, and then let me explain why, right? So yesterday I was in a call with certain people. Not gonna name any names, right? It was like, some sidecom people, and then they get into the debate, and immediately they're getting cut off by all other people. There's somebody in the background playing some Harry Potter music because he hears my voice and he thinks it's funny to play Harry Potter music while I'm speaking because I'm British, right? But yeah, there are a whole bunch of people doing that, and basically you can't actually derive any form of meaningful conversation, right, by going into like a back and forth in Skype here. That's why loads of people in the side community, they don't want to text here because every single, like, look, it's like I was asked today, right, to like get people to type in Skype. Yeah, I didn't really want to. So like, so specifically British people. It's like one, I don't know how you can push all of your friends away, and then like you get into arguments with them, push all of your friends away, and then just immediately look for replacements instead of trying to like amend the issue that you guys have. It's like, look, you are grown, right? You are grown, and not only are you grown, right? You're also the owner of a server, so you are like what's it called? It makes no sense for you to get into a slight argument with somebody, and instead of actually trying to resolve it, the first thing you do is just look for a replacement because that's not how that works. That's not how people work, right? You don't just go looking for a replacement for your girlfriend, right? Immediately you lose her because immediately what's gonna happen is you're gonna treat these new British people the same way you treated the old British people, and it's like, dude, and not even that. It's like one, people are animals, right? I mean, we are, but people aren't like pets, so you can't really do that. And two, it's like if there are five different people who all are like British, and I'm pretty sure there's also some Americans in there too, right? Who've all gotten into arguments with Sakazuki and are all gotten into arguments with like Archie and all going into arguments with all these people. And then surprisingly, the more and more people that you find who share the same trait all seem to have a problem with you, then it sounds like, oh, maybe they aren't the problem. Maybe it's just something in their blood. Maybe it's not the British people. Maybe it's like you actually have a problem. It's like it's nothing too significant. It's like whenever I say that I have a problem with somebody, I mean this doesn't really apply to me and C because I also called I like C, you know what I mean. But like certain friendships in Skype, for example, I know that's two specific owners who literally, I mean, one just doesn't like the other, right? Like for example, this also happens a lot. I spoke about this when I was like shouting at Ryan. It's like, look, wait, I'm about to sneeze. I'm gonna pause the recording and come back because okay. So I didn't actually sneeze, spoiler alert, right? In reality, I just like had a really really nose, but it's fine. Look, so I was saying beforehand, it's like people in real life on the app, right? All of them, their fake friends exist everywhere, right? And specifically, it's like sometimes there is actually a good reason for somebody to be fake towards you because it's like if you are that unlikable, where people feel as if they can't actually express their full true feelings about you because you start tweaking out and getting mad, right? Then they won't want to associate with you. Again, a major example of this is like look at certain like communities, right, where they get taught by a certain person, and over time they feel that this person is more and more like actually dislikable. Why did he have to fall there? But over time they learn that this person is more and more dislikable than they actually thought. And then they began to disassociate and no longer like stay in their servers, it's like what's it called, is it really I can name like three four five examples of this. Is this really 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 like, is that really how you want to live your life, where you people who you go from friends to enemies in seconds simply because you don't know how to control your own ego? It's actually insane. Like I don't know how people do it, for one, right? And then two, wait, how do I even play this game? I haven't played this. Oh, okay. And then two, um, another thing I want to talk about specifically is how do people, right? For example, I know the people think Seth was really good, right? And my issue is how do people thought Seth was good, and then Seth turned out to be a really weird guy apparently. So it's like, is it really what's it called? Is being good at debating, does it make you a manipulator? And it's like, no, I don't. I don't think being a good debater makes you a good what's it called? Makes you a worse person. It just means that like some people in the app are weird. As I don't understand. Like literally, Seth had everything going for him. So confused. Okay, yeah, Seth had everything going for him. So I don't understand why he like what's it called? Why that type of thing did happen, right? And then the other thing is like what's it called? Yeah. There was this other thing that I want to talk about specifically. It was just how. and why do Discord friendships fall apart so quickly? So major examples of this would be like somebody in a friend group. This is how it usually happens. And I'm speaking from experience. Somebody in a friend group joins. They're really bad at it initially. Then they look to other people in the friend group for help. And then, as they look to other people in the friend group for help, right, they begin to like this is like newbie debater games, right? In the same way how when you work out, you get newbie games, right? But then what's it called? They look to the other debater for help, and then they begin to grow immensely quickly. They grow like really, really, really quickly, right? And then they, let's say in their own mind, they think they surpassed the person who taught them. So as they think that, the person who taught them kind of gets angry, right? They get angry and they begin to like and become enraged, right? Because it's like, how I taught you, I brought you from the mud, and now you're gonna say you're better than me and put me lower than you on your tier list. How could you do this to me, right? And then as time goes on, they even though you could see they would still remain friends for a little bit, right? The over time they begin to like associate with each other less and less and less and less and less, right? And then as they associate with each other less and less, right? Then you begin to see like what's it called problems begin to arise between them, right? All of the traits that they dislike about each other become enhanced, right? So for example, they may get into more arguments about petty stuff. You can see that more and more. And then over time the friend group just divides because it's like one of you, all they've really done or the only crime they're really guilty of is thinking that they're better than the other. And then the other one is just like unable to cope with that because no, my bad for the sickness, but because they have a deep ingrained fear, maybe, or deep ingrained dislike of being worse than people who they brought into the game. It's the same way how whenever you teach your brother how to play a game, your little brother, and then your brother beats you at the game and he beats you up really badly, right? Of course, you're going to, like most people at least, who feel at least a tiny bit angry. So, in that same fashion, right? Uh, I think that's how people react whenever they realize that somebody who they taught how to debate is better than them now, because because they just can't cope, I guess. Like I don't understand. Like it's really like stupid to me at least, right? But because it should be, oh, you're the entire reason you're training this guy so that again then you have somebody who, even if you say like unless they like suddenly tear gap you, then it kind of is your fault. Because how are you debating for longer than the guy? Yeah, you still aren't at least comparable to him, right? And then it's like also called um if they don't tear gap you, then you guys are relative, right? And if you guys are relative, that just means good fit to a good friendly competition, right? I don't understand how, like, for example, you know somebody can be dead relative. Like most of the friendships I see when two people are like literally rivals tend to end up being friendships. So and a good example would be Molam and D1. I assumed they were friends for a good bit, but in reality, it apparently they weren't actually friends because D1 literally leaked Molam's face and it's like, dude, you're a grown man, you're on Discord, leaking other people's faces. Have you no shame? And in reality, he doesn't have any shame, right? But most friendships I see on Discord like that tend to end up as like rivalries or end up as two people, you know, vying and trying their best to get better. But they should just stop trying to do that eventually. They stop caring. And then because they stop caring, they are unable to actually like keep up anymore. Right? And then they don't keep up and then it just ends up as a huge cycle of like just continuously being like that. Now, again, at certain points, it doesn't even have to get to that stage where you teach somebody how to debate, and then after you've taught them, they then experience more and more debaters, and because they experience more and more debaters, they don't hold you to such a high regard as they did when they first debated you, now when they first met you. So because they don't hold you to such a high regard, then you begin to develop disdain for them because it's like, dude, I taught you how to debate. Why are you snaking me? Why are you downplaying me? Right? And it's like, dude, you need to cope and like realize that nobody is going to share the same opinion of you as you do, and it's fine. But again, um, that's all I have to say about that specific thing. Perfect example of this at least would be let me think, because I know I was going to say Goons and Apollo, but Goons apparently was just never friends with Apollo, Right, so it's like, okay, well, that's awkward because I'm pretty sure Apollo thought they were friends. But wait, what isn't connected? Oh, but and then that really is that's really it. Another thing I want to talk about is how do you determine when we are watching a debate? And this isn't just a question to something I want to explain. How do people who watch these debates, right? And say, for example, people think Seth made Death Training. I also share that same opinion. But how do you come to that conclusion? What's your thought process? Do you judge off of like who you actually think or who you agree with? Because, I agree that Seth probably isn't as good as Trini, right? But I disagree with the way Trini proved it. So I also got a comment talking about how people think or what people or how do I phrase this? How I think Seth would compare to people who currently debate. Alright, it's like people for some odd reason think that I'm this low tier down player. It's like no. I think that people like Six, people like Seth, they just have knowledge that was like beyond their time, basically. No glazed. It's like, look, if you have a debate style which translates well, right, to how an actual debate should function, then you're probably going to be better. So again, how I judge debates is like this, right? Not who I agree with, because that's stupid, right? That's completely idiotic. But I judge debates just based off of what's it called? Who argued their point better? So, and the way I'm determined that is like, for example, if I give an argument, oh, Goku beats Naruto because Naruto is stated to be immeasurable speed, however Goku is stated to be irrelevant speed, and we know that irrelevant speed is higher than immeasurable speed. And then somebody, his opponent responds by saying, "Oh well, actually, irrelevant speed can't even exist in the first place, right? Because also called irrelevant speed can't exist in the first place because it leads to a logical contradiction, this, that, and the third, and logical contradictions can't exist." Right. So if logical contradictions can't exist, then you have no real basis for Goku being faster. And then instead of like what's it called, instead of responding properly, instead they just move on to something else and use another piece of proof. So I take that to be a point one on the negation side. And then my bad for the sniffles again. I don't want to be no pianist, but I'm really sick, right? And then so I take that as a point lost for the person on the positive and a point one for the person on the negation because they've just basically one shot the entire basis, right? So a good debater, at least, or someone who's won a debate, at least to me, is somebody who's going to be able to what's it called? To reduce the opponent's position to either a just mere simple skepticism spam, right? Because then that just means you got argumentatively destroyed to the point where you're unable to actually defend your view. Instead, you just choose to rely on mere skepticism, which is like, okay, if you have a burden to prove, hence why you took a specific character in the debate. Unless it's like you choose to only argue about your scaling, right? You at least you still are going to have to provide some reason why your character is like wins like or some reason as to why their point is wrong. Because for example, right, it's like if I say there is X person, and X person is a killer, right? And then I say my reason as to why they are a killer is because of X, Y, and Z because I see a knife in their hand, right? And then what's it called? Because of this, I then come to the conclusion that oh they are a killer. And then you say, oh well, that isn't actually we don't know if that's a knife or not. That's actually a prop knife, right? So like even though that other option is completely possible, right? You could say that we still have more reason to believe as to why like one is what's it called? Why this guy's a killer compared to the other position, which is that this guy is like this guy's just a guy with a prop knife. And you could say that specifically, oh no. Instead of that, you just say, oh well, why is this necessarily the case? Because it's possible it could be this. It's like, okay, yeah, it's possible. Loads of things are possible. So when we're determining which one is more probable, there's also a term of intuitive intuition there. Where it's like, yeah, if I weigh up these two interpretations, man, because these two, like, this is something I recommend every debater to do. If you're weighing up two different interpretations, try and appeal to the audience more. Because trying to appealing to the audience is then going to get a better grasp of whose interpretation is more likely. Because if you're trying to argue over which interpretation actually means anything, right? Or which interpretation actually holds more validity is more likely, then you'd basically just be arguing over like what's it called, the linguistics. So if the author is trying to portray a message to his readers, which he probably is, right, then you could also just say that, like, okay, if his readers seem to be expressing this message from what he's saying, then this message is probably the most likely one. Like, it's very hard to do. So I judge you over like who wins little argumentative engagements like that, where all your opponent really has on their side is just the question why this, why that, why this, why that. Whereas you are able to give, like, this is what Seth calls flat earthing. So I'm going to use his term. It'd be like if a flat earther continues to ask you questions about why you think the earth is round, and then you continue to give them answers over and over and over and over again, right? And every single time they're skeptic, their skepticism is like is correctly addressed, right? And then they just continue to go on without end. Then it just like what's it called? It leads their position to some kind of weird absurdity where it's like, okay, so either A, you take this, what's it called? You take this level of skepticism into your daily life where you question everything. So if your mom tells you something, you just question her. I think I brought this example like loads of my debates, right? Or B, you don't take this into your everyday life, which just means you're special pleading, Those type of arguments where the skeptic or the person on the negation isn't really able to address. Those type are the ones that we actually like value. I also value like cases in which people like how to explain this? So points where they're able to give a like accurate refutation where your opponent is unable to give like an adequate one in response. So of course, saying if I say you lost, what's it called, or my argument is right because of X, Y, and Z, and you say blah 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 blah, right? Of course, that isn't going to be an adequate response. You know what I mean? It's a very obvious stuff, right? I don't really rank it off of who sounds better, right? Because I also think that instead of rhetoric just being who sounds better, who's more fluent in terms of their speech only, I also think that like what's it called, the strength of your argument actually comes in too. So if I have a really strong argument and rhetoric is just supposed to be how much I can convince people, then it's more likely that my argument is stronger if I'm like what's it called. My argument is going to be stronger and my rhetoric is going to be better because I have a better argument that I'm using, right? But of course, if somebody is just yelling really loud and then people in the audience just like to hear people yell for some odd reason, then maybe they got yelled at when they were younger, right? But if they just like hearing people yell, of course they're going to have like some intrinsic biases. But I don't really have those intrinsic biases, if you get what I mean. The final thing is how to judge a debate or whether or not Seth would be good compared to this current community. And it's like, well, there's some really good people and some really bad people in this current community, right? So I think on average, the worst people in this community are better than the worst people in that community because they just had no foundation. And what I mean by foundation is just simple grasp, or like let's say a simple grasp, like not even this is below entry level grasp on the feel like on how to counter skepticism. They have a below entry level grasp, right? They also have a below entry level grasp on how to not make fallacious arguments, right? So a main reason as to why I think that the old gen community is really bad is because Valor would go around whenever he's making an argument and use basically what we call a conjunction fallacy to justify his argument, literally. And he's done over 70 debates with this same argument, and it's always worked, and nobody's pointed it out, right? At least from what I know. So the fact that they don't have a simple grasp on the ability to track and point out basic logical errors there, right, just shows that they have just worse reasoning skills. Like, look, because if you put Valor's argument into another context, then you can see how like what's it called? It just seems absurd. So it'd be like, okay, I say there's going to be rain falling out of the sky. Somebody else says, no, there's going to be dogs falling out of the sky. And then in third person comes in, it's like, no, 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 neither of you are wrong. Instead, it's going to be rain and dogs falling out of the sky, right? And since I'm including both of your possibilities, mine is more probable now. And you understand how like the probability of rain and dogs is just way less likely than just rain on its own. So again, it's just like it shows like a vast and a severe fundamental misunderstanding of how probability works, which makes loads of sense, seeing as supposed skeptics like Bubbles are able to go around the community saying another level can be a lower level for like a good 62 years. And then the entire reason he was able to get away with that is because people weren't actually able to give a solid preponderance of evidence, right? I guarantee the reason why Bubbles is like so, because I consider Bubbles to be so good right now, is simply because Bubbles actually is able to adapt to the current debating style, where he also changes how he debates right now. So he no longer has to rely on such radical skepticism, which will get thrown apart, right? Instead, the way he's actually able to get past all of these people is through raw argumentation and knowledge. Right? So again, that's why I consider the old gen bad, right? And then the new gen too, I also consider some of them bad as well. Specifically because even though I think that some of the old gen may not be able to counter like the immense levels of skepticism that they have, I don't judge who's a better debater off of who's like what's it called, who is able to win the debate, right? I judge it who's a better debater off of who's able to justify the argument better. So if you aren't really giving an argument, instead all you're doing is playing skeptic and playing defense, or playing like defense, which is significantly easier to do than playing offense, right? Then of course I'm not going to value you winning on the defense as much as I'm going to value somebody winning on the offense, if you get what I mean. Specifically because of that, like fact, like for example, if I say why, of course that's way easier to do than just actually having to go and find evidence for anything that you're saying. So again, people who do that, radical skeptics, it's like you can't really get into a solid conversation with them. There's another good reason as to why, like for example, I'm pretty sure Archimedes said this himself in this debate. He just went around being a skeptic, and it's like, dude, how can you really sit here and tell me that some of these certain people are good, right? If they're just radical skeptics, right? It makes no real sense. Also, another thing I want to talk about, Discord friendships, really weird, right? I saw Apollo fall out with Archie. I say Archie is really bad, Archie is really ass. Specifically because of only one reason, right? And look, if you think that I'm lying when I say they were beefing before, go watch the Kakashi versus LA Belloc debate. You can literally tell that they don't like each other at that time. And the reason why all of this stuff just starts is specifically because, what's it called? Like, one of them gives you the bare opinion that the other one doesn't like. For example, Archie said that he lost to Azazel. It's like, look, if you judge the debate opinion, or if you have friends with somebody, not because they are fun to be around, not because you learn anything from speaking to them, but simply because they help stroke your debate ego, you shouldn't be friends with them, right? Um, and the final thing to actually answer the question now, because I know as well the whole little tirade there. To answer the question, I think Seth would still be really good. So one, I think his rhetoric is just insane out of like just out of this world. I don't want to say out of this world, but his rhetoric is insane compared to most people in this community, right? So um a main example for rhetoric in this community would be like let me pause recording and think real quick. Yeah, okay. Well, I lied. I did a pause recording to think of someone who's good at rhetoric. I pause recording because I got really sick. But the main example of somebody who has supposedly good rhetoric would be Infinity, and I think Infinity just gets rhetorically dwarfed by him. Not to say that he's the worst debater, because again, I barely watch Infinity debate. I've only seen him lose to Paul, because it's like fine, I don't really care. But I think Seth just has way better rhetoric than him. He's way more fluent in his speech, right? And I think just overall he has stronger arguments on the affirmative than Infinity does, which is fine, I guess. Like I think overall, if Infinity and the guy debated, depending on if it's a topic that like Seth does, which is like Dragon Ball Z inverse, then of course Seth is just gonna win. But if it's a topic that Infinity does like cross us, to my knowledge, I've never seen like Seth actually debate it. So I think he'd probably win like his corner. Alright, but again, Infinity, he's a very good rat. I can say that. Infinity is a very good rat. It's like, and I think he can acknowledge this himself too. He like trolls in his debates on like a fake shit where it's like, oh yeah, no, it was because of skill that he was able to keep up with him. It's actually because of stats, and it's like, look, do you think Gege, who's the author of JJK, was thinking of that whenever they were writing down Utah punching this guy, and when he says, oh yeah, he got faster, instead of saying, oh, that he actually got a buff in his speed, instead what he'll say is, oh yeah, no, it's because of martial arts technique. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Maybe I'm not a Sigma Guna like the rest of the con, but correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, Martial arts techniques don't make you look faster than you are in real life. So, again, and sometimes it's just like never even mentioned that they ever have what's it called? That they ever have any form of advanced martial arts. But look, it's fine. But yeah, I think Seth would be really good. I have him like tier two, high tier two on my tier list. And people, certain people have him below fucking Monkey Man. Oh, it's like, oh, it's just because he's in your friend group. But again, that's fine. Uh, that's it for me. If you like the video, please remember to like and subscribe. And yeah, this is Shinra, and I'm out.